Hanson.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
McLaughlin. Here. Natoli.
Here.
Peters. Starsky.
Here.
Terry.
Here.
Warren.
Here.
All right. Director Harris, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance for us today?
Sure. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Larry, do you want to go ahead with your presentation?
Sure. The first thing I'd like to do is I'll separate myself to
I know mic's not on.
that on? Is that better?
Now it is.
Can you turn it up?
No, it's on now.
All right.
Go ahead.
First, I'd like to, it was a good breakfast this morning. It was really interesting, and we also have a video that we will show. I know that those of you that were there saw several, so we happen to have one queued up this morning in a moment. But first, I want to introduce a new employee, Victoria Pena. She is, Victoria, you want to stand up? We actually got a very experienced employer here. She came from the Sacramento County Environmental Management Division. She has 8 years of experience as an environmental specialist. She did enforcement work in solid waste facilities and illegal dump sites. So we brought in an employee that already could hit the ground running in our division to work with our stationary sources and inspecting our sources. So we were very happy to have her. She's already made an impact there, and it's always, sorry to EMD, but we got a great person here, so we're very happy to have her here. Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Welcome.
So if you hit the ground running, then start running and get back to work.
We're going to have to turn off your microphone.
We try to get all the employees here to see one board meeting completely through, so we'll have her here for this whole meeting, I think. And now I'd like to cue up the video. This video was paid for partially by our Air District, and it talks about the Air District Capcoa mission in California. So we'll see this now.
California, 1943. Everyone knew something had to be done, and quickly. The haze called smog was getting worse.
Until the early 1950s, industrial pollution in California went unchecked. Auto emissions were uncontrolled, and people thought nothing of burning their garbage. So, air pollution control districts were formed, and for the first time, scientists and local officials began working together to monitor and control air quality. Now, there are nearly 36 air pollution control or air quality management districts throughout the state, varying in sizes and scope, and responsive at the local level, as well as on a statewide level. Each has an oversight group or board made up of elected or appointed officials, and it's this diverse group who oversee the agency's functions. A vast network of hundreds of air monitoring stations measures air quality around the state, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Districts rely on meteorologists and monitoring data, along with up-to-date weather information, to make air quality forecasts. Information collected from this network is also analyzed in a lab and used by staff to develop air quality models and examine long-term air quality trends.
To ensure businesses comply with air pollution laws and regulations, the districts issue permits. Permits are reviewed annually, and a network of field inspectors conduct on-site facility inspections and test emission sources to make sure businesses stay in compliance.
Our team of experts responds to air quality complaints and provides technical assistance to businesses and organizations to help them comply with air quality regulations. These inspections include operations, large and small alike, such as source testing and natural gas storage facilities.
The districts seek counsel from and engage experts and other stakeholders and hold many community meetings on air quality topics, including regulations, clean air plans and strategies, as well as issues of interest to the community. The districts are also committed to advanced technologies that both reduce emissions and improve fuel efficiency.
All districts offer grant programs that award funds to public and private entities to voluntarily reduce pollution from mobile sources, such as trucks, buses, ferries as well as cars, marine vessels, locomotives, and construction and agricultural equipment. Grants are purposefully allocated to encourage clean air alternatives.
The winter months, with cooler temperatures and reduced sunlight, diminish ozone or smog-related problems. But dangerous airborne particles, referred to as particulate matter, are a serious problem in cooler weather.
Because the millions of fireplaces and wood stoves around the state are a major source of particulate matter, smoke from residential wood burning becomes a major health concern. Since each individual district has unique topographical and population density characteristics, some encourage residents to voluntarily refrain from burning wood, and others issue health advisories, and wood burning is banned during alert periods.
Some fires, such as wildfires and catastrophic fires, are beyond district's regulation.
Beyond the clear danger to life and property, smoke and ash from large wildfires produces staggering levels of air pollution, threatening the health of thousands of people, often hundreds of miles away from where these wildfires burn. When levels reach such an unhealthy range, air districts issue health alerts and also work with public health officers, CAL FIRE, and other local agencies to determine when to call a shelter in place.
Separately, during certain times of the year, when fire danger is lower, residential and commercial debris burning of dead vegetation is allowed in many areas. The Air Pollution Control and Air Quality Management Districts publish days when it is a permissive burn day in local areas. However, when the weather begins to warm up and fire danger increases, CAL FIRE may restrict all debris burning. Ultimately, every facet of the 35 districts' work is to protect and improve public health. Over the past 20 years, California's population has increased by 22%. And the average daily miles driven have increased by 45%. At the same time, statewide emissions of smog-forming pollutants have dropped by over 50%. Thanks in part to the district's raising awareness of air pollution and the public's effort to promote social changes. By improving air quality over the past few decades, the district's programs have produced substantial public health benefits and saved the state millions of dollars in health-related costs. The air districts throughout California are proud to have played an instrumental role in partnership with agencies such as the California Air Resources Board and U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in this success story. But as population and traffic continue to grow, and as we grapple with the looming threat of climate change, it will require all our ingenuity and resourcefulness as agencies and as members of the greater community to continue this positive trend. To find out more information about your district, visit capcoa.org/districts.
I think that we did a presentation to legislative analysts. We do this every year at the start of the session, and we had about 30, 35 of the new staff at the legislature see this a couple weeks ago, and it was very well received. I think it's a great video, and again, this was funded by air districts across California, and we put some money into that ourselves. Next thing I'd like to mention is NOAA training. You have in your on your desk a flyer for some training that the district was able to obtain. This is called Climate Adaptation for Coastal Communities Training, but it will be oriented toward the Central Valley. And this training is a 3-day workshop. It's free for the district to have this come here, but we do have a $45 charge. That includes lunch and refreshments. We usually do have a small charge because when people pay a small charge, they end up coming, and we only have a limited number of slots for this. So you see the information about who to call there. This should be great training for planning staff, public works, and any hazard mitigation planners that are there. And this is the first option we'd like to provide is to your staffs at the cities and the county to come to this. So please pass this information down. We have been communicating with them, but sometimes when that word comes from the elected officials, it makes a difference into who attends this.
Are you going to email that out to everyone else?
We can email, yes, we will email this out. But we have already been contacting the planning managers and other people, but we wanted to be sure that board members themselves were aware of this. The next is, there was a Propel Fuels workshop that Supervisor Cerna attended recently. We now have renewable diesel that's available here in Sacramento. This is really important because this fuel has a 70% greenhouse gas reduction. It also has improved characteristics for criteria pollutants. And Capital Corridor Train is very interested in getting this fuel into their locomotives. And that would have an immediate reduction in emissions from the locomotives that are coming forward. So we're continuing to work with them, and appreciate the comments that Supervisor Cerna made there at the event. And I'd also like to mention the Green California Summit that's coming up on 4/7 through 4/9. The Sacramento Clean Cities Coalition, which we're a member of, will have 3 panels there. In addition to that, they have on their trade floor, an amazing group of new technologies. You certainly want to go over and just see that. It has all the best, and it covers the floor there at the convention center. Our topics will be electric vehicle and charger funding, hydrogen fuel of the future that is here today, and simple carbon reduction strategies for fleets that also work at home. The next thing I wanted to mention was that we have continued our work with the fire chiefs. I know many of you are interested in that. We have developed, I met with them along with staff. They were willing and happy to form a subcommittee. They have some representatives there. We have some people. They're continuing to work on an interface so that we can ensure that fire training doesn't impact air quality on days when that might, but also so that they will be able to continue to do the training that they need to do. I would also like to mention that we have agreed to help fund, to put a sponsorship into the Regional Leadership Council 2016, which is going to be held, I believe, in Citrus Heights. How policy decisions impact the local economy. The reason that we're helping to fund this is to specifically get Mary Kimball from the Center for Land-Based Learning there to talk about urban farms, and I think you will have a farmer's market there too, and you may want to mention that in a moment when we go through all of the elected officials. So that's everything that I have for the APCO report.
All right, any board members want to comment on this? I don't see anybody. Okay. Did you want to say something, Director Frost?
About the Regional Leadership Council 2015. It's going to be an exciting event. We planned it in the morning so that you can have your afternoon free. So it'll go from 7:45 to 1 p.m. and there are multiple leaders from the region that will be participating in this. We'll be talking about transportation, how policy impacts the local economy from all different levels. And we have Dr. Bonvardzin from the dean at Sac State, who will be coming to give us an economic forecast and how different policies impact the economy. So if you want to hear on certain topics that might be pertinent to the region, we're hoping that you'll let us know as soon as possible what your questions are so we can make sure he includes those. And I also wanted to mention that we have participation from just about every county and city. So it's going to be a broad representation of the region, and I am hoping that you can come. And yes, we're going to have a farmer's market there. Mary Kimball's going to be speaking about urban farming, and Mayor Kevin Johnson will be our keynote speaker, and he'll be talking about City 3.0, Sacramento 3.0. And so it's going to be a great event, and I hope you can all come.
Thank you, Director. Larry, maybe you could send out to the board just the information.
I will certainly do that.
Oh, great. Thank you. Director Cerna, but also right before you arrived, we were congratulating you on your award. And this morning, Director Cerna got elected Official of the Year at Regional Transit's annual breakfast. And congratulations for all your hard work there and on air quality.
Thank you very much, especially to you, Director Hansen. We serve together on the RT board, as I do with my colleagues, Supervisors McGlashan and Natali and Mr. Harris, and I think that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, indeed an honor. Certainly, there are a lot of other much more deserving elected officials, in my estimation, that should be acknowledged. I wanted to make mention of follow on the. What Larry said about the Propel fuels. We, the California Air Resources Board, had staff and our chair, Mary Nichols, at a press event, probably 10 days ago. But I didn't think I heard you mention the location of the station. And this is, again, Propel high performance renewable diesel, and I believe it's the 19th station in the region.
1101 Broadway.
Okay, so that's at the
Valero.
the northeast corner of Riverside Boulevard and Broadway, which is in Councilmember Hansen's district.
That's right.
And my district. And so, for those that might be watching that fuel your vehicles with diesel, and I know our esteemed chair has a small displacement clean diesel vehicle himself, I would encourage you to
Green Car of the Year 2010.
There you go. I would encourage you to certainly at least try fueling with renewable diesel. I'm told that many diesel drivers are finding that their vehicles actually run smoother. And I learned a lot that day at that press conference, including the fact that renewable diesel today is now made in part or processed in part with fish heads. So that's your little kernel of information today.
We're hoping to do more continuing education at the board, and so thank you. We've achieved our goal for the day. And just one comment, last weekend was the annual LGC Smart Growth Conference, of which the district has been a sponsor or sponsored this year. And there are some of the board members in attendance from this board, but many regional officials from around the state. And it was great to see the district taking a leadership role at that particular forum. And I think our air pollution control officer did a great job making sure that we are a leader on this issue as well. So thank you for that. All right, clerk, next item.
Next item is consent matters, items 4 and 5.
Anyone comments? Want to move it?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, there you go.
Next item is under separate matters. This is item number 6, receive a report on changes in California's air toxics program.
And I'd like to thank Bridget for briefing this. She briefed the board about 9 months ago, I think, and we asked her to come back because we're going to be seeing this issue in front of the board for the next number of months. And she will cover some timing on that. Bridget's giving the overview, but Dave Gross and Jorge de Guzman will be doing the detail work, and they will be coming back to the board with any changes that we're making to policies or decisions that the board has to make. And I think you'll see after Bridget's review here, for those of you who remember this and those that are new, how important this particular issue is for the district and the businesses in our community.
Bridget?
Grant
there
Coordination
you go.
Division.
You're on now.
I am? Okay. Thanks. All right. Bridget Tolstrup, Manager of the Program Coordination Division. Today I'm going to be updating you on some changes that have been made by the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment They are the state agency that's responsible for determining the scientific risks associated with hazardous substances through the agency itself and a scientific review panel appointed people who make recommendations to the head of the OEHA about identifying toxic substances. OEHA has made changes to the health risk assessment guidelines that the district uses to do health risk assessments of facilities that emit air toxics and manage those risks. We are communicating with our businesses and other stakeholders locally about the changes, and I'm here today really to talk more about those changes. So the health risk assessment guidelines are used for the 2588 Hotspots Information and Assessment Act. It's basically a state law that requires that businesses who emit toxic air contaminants quantify their emissions and assess the toxic risks associated with them and update that information periodically. In 1992, the state law was changed to require that facilities that had high risk put together risk management plans and reduce their risks. In 1999, the state law changed again to direct the OEHA to assess and make sure that the risk assessment guidelines were adequately protecting children's health. And over many years in scientific studies, the OEHA did some additional assessments, and last year they proposed changes to the risk assessment guidelines. The changes basically will show that without increasing emissions, the risk assessments numbers look like they're higher. But in spite of that change in the risk, perceived increased risk, over the last 20 years, we've seen toxic risk reduction of over 80% in spite of increases in population of 8 million people and 8 million cars in California. So this slide just depicts the variety of air toxics program the district operates. The air toxics hotspots program I already talked about. It reviews the information from existing facilities. We also, as part of the permit process, look at toxic emissions from new sources or sources that are modifying their operations to make sure that they're protecting public health. Facilities that are located within 1,000 feet of a school have particular protections. They're required. We do additional public noticing for those facilities so that the parents and local residents are aware of the changes. The enforcement and the permitting folks also implement air toxic control measures that the State Air Resources Board adopts, and the federal EPA adopts air toxic control measures as well. So those are implemented within the permit and enforcement programs as well. The land use program is primarily responsible for acting as a responsible agency under CEQA. They predominantly look at the near roadway exposure to toxic air contaminants like diesel smoke. So the changes that the OEHA has made are based on some studies that show that adults are more sensitive to the effects of toxins, and children, including children in the third trimester, have a greater sensitivity to the toxicity of compounds. And it reflects that children breathe at a higher rate, and the exposure estimates, air quality modeling associated with the dispersion of pollutants is also part of the guidelines. So all of those changes are included in the revised guidelines. As I said earlier, it results in most cases in a calculated increased risk. Although the emissions aren't increasing from the facility, the risk numbers associated with the facilities most likely will be higher, as much as 2.6 times higher than the risk numbers that are previously associated with the facilities. So some changes and next steps. The OEHA finalized the guidelines earlier this month on March 6th. The California Air Resources Board has developed for districts use a model that assesses the health risk assessment and comes up with the health risk numbers. The Air Resources Board and all of the air districts in California are working together to implement those recommendations, because the guidelines simply associate a number, a toxic risk number, with facilities. What you do to manage that risk is in the hands of the district and the Air Resources Board in terms of when they make decisions for not requiring additional controls or not allowing sources to construct or to require risk reduction. So that's a process that has yet to come to completion. The Air Resources Board expects to take the changes to the risk management guidelines to their board in May. We will then implement those requirements through our permitting process, and we will bring forward changes that we may need to the policies associated with the implementation of the risk management procedures after that time. And so that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Bridget. We have one member of the public signed up to speak before we do board comments. Julian Canetti.
Good morning, members. Julian Canetti, representing the Sacramento Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce. We represent over 600 members here in the Sacramento region. Our members are concerned about the updated AB 2588 air quality guidelines will give the public the false impression that air quality levels have worsened, when in fact the exact opposite is true. As you know, significant reductions in emissions and air toxics risk have been made over the last several decades. Under the updated guidelines, our members could be blamed for creating a new health risk, even though their emissions have not increased, and in some cases, their emissions have actually been reduced. We urge the Air District to give thoughtful and careful consideration as you begin implementing the new risk communication and risk management guidelines. The communication guidelines need to provide clear and credible explanations as to why the new changes have been made. It is important the new risk be put into the appropriate context so the public understands that air toxic risk is a function of emissions. If emissions are not increasing, actual risk remains the same. We all benefit from providing clear and meaningful information to the public. Creating confusion and fear amongst community members could lead to a backlash towards our member businesses. Finally, our members are concerned about the costly reduction measures that could significantly harm their operations. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any of the board want to comment on this item? I don't see anybody signed up. All right. Next item.
Next item is item number 7, under separate matters, receive and file a report on cap-to-cap air team topics for 2015.
I just wanted to give the board the list of the topics that we have on the air team. We have quite a number of board members that are signed up to be on the air team for Cap to Cap this year. We will have a team training, Monday before the trip at 3:30 to 5 on Valley Vision. You'll receive some information on that from Tara Thronson at Valley Vision for those team members that are going. The topics are business resiliency, and this is our business resiliency effort that Valley Vision is taking forward with us. This idea came out of some meetings we had with the Chamber of Commerce, and I think it's been very well received in Washington as we brought this forward, and is something that lets them know that we're not just sitting on our laurels, but we're thinking of positive ways that we can provide information to the business community and help them to prepare for, especially small and medium businesses, to give them information they need so they could prepare for floods or fires or heat emergencies and other things. And we would be working with the Chamber to provide this information out as part of their workshops and things that they do for their members. Federal incentive programs, we always talk about that, and we remind the federal agencies and staff there about how important it is for them to continue to fund the programs here in the district, grant programs funding. And then we carried an issue last year on the Clean Power Plan, which is the EPA new rule EPA has finalized. They've closed the workshop, and we did our testimony last year before it was closed. But SMUD and some of the other power folks wanted us to carry this again this year, and since it was an air quality issue last year, we're carrying it again this year under the air quality team. So that's on the Clean Power Plan, asking EPA to ensure that it recognizes what California has already done in this area and helps to level the playing field nationally for California businesses.
Great.
And that's all that I have.
Any directors? Nope. All right, well, thank you, Larry. We're going to move on to comments on matters not on the agenda from the public, but one thing I did want the board to know is there was an item earlier about bike share. I know that's something the Air District has worked on, and now SACOG is going to be the lead agency on that. So I've asked Larry to bring back an item to the board just to brief us on where that stands. A deadline, a goal of 2016, May 2016, has sort of loosely been set, and we're trying to get to that, so I think it'd be helpful to have you know what's going on. All right, we have one member of the public signed up to speak on items not on the agenda, Mr. Barrows.
Good morning. I'm Adam Barrows. I represent GR Trucking and Creek Crush. My company provides aggregate trucking services, and we operate 2 concrete recycling facilities within Sacramento County. I come here today at the suggestion of Director Cerna to bring attention to a recent degree of frustration my company had with a notice of violation we received. We were issued a notice of violation for not having a stationary source permit at our Bradshaw facility, where we did have the PERP, the state registration for that equipment. The equipment that was cited operates very infrequently at that facility, which is located at 5244 Bradshaw Road. 5 years ago, when we went through the CEQA process with the county to obtain our CUP, we did not receive any input from the Air Board on being required to have the stationary source permit. During the process, we had to halt operation from this notice of violation, and we suffered substantial loss of contracts, fulfilling orders that we had by not being allowed to crush, jeopardized future contracts as well. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that, outreach, there didn't appear to be any outreach with facilities like mine. I understand that a number of other concrete recyclers within Sacramento County also received notice of violations. And I don't think any one of us, with the services we provide, the environmental recycling that we provide, would have tried to circumvent the law and break the law. Related to the outreach, maybe stakeholders in our industry could be brought in. Currently, with the permit that we have now, that we've rectified at our Bradshaw facility, I have to run 3 pieces of equipment to recycle. I am now not allowed to go out and rent 1 piece that could do the job of 3 with cleaner technology motor. I'm prevented from doing that, and that hurts my business. It adds cost, increased adverse effects to air quality. I appreciate the mission of the Air District and what we're doing. I just would hope that we could get together and work with facilities like mine.
Thank you, sir. We have one director who'd like to speak, Director Natoli.
Yes, thank you, Chair Henson. The GNR Trucking's business, both are located in the district I represent in the county, and I know we went through quite an extensive review on their conditional use permit at the time, and certainly at the Bradshaw facility. The other location is still under consideration relative to the zoning code and industrial reserve and how that may become into full compliance as it relates to some of the land use dictates that govern certain uses. But I guess, again, maybe there's more to the story that Larry Dave wanted to add to, but it would seem to me that this, on one hand, we encourage folks to recycle, to do that, obviously, keeping in mind all the various other facets of good business conduct. And if our approach is, rather than calling and or making some contact, maybe we did that, but just to send a notice of violation, it's kind of like a gotcha type of a approach. And I'm not saying that's what you do, Larry, but that when you get the notice of violation, that's what that is. You've now been put on notice that you're in violation of X. And if we have an industry that is growing, and actually, certainly even at the Kiefer landfill, we just approved here on Tuesday, where we're going to take the inerts to utilize them for free. Again, because they have value to them, and they're reused in a lot of the products, and there's certainly dust and other things that are associated with that. So I guess I'm curious as to what happened, not just GNR, but if there's others that got NOVs, did we do outreach to that industry? And if we did, then that falls to them to be responsible, then to respond. But if we just send them a ding letter, and that's how we get their attention, that to me, that's not the way we usually approach it. So I guess I'm asking a question. How do we approach this, Dave?
Yeah, there's a number of issues here. One of the things, we have a program in place where new facilities are typically identified to the extent that we can, hopefully before they locate. Burke helps us with that as well as our own efforts of outreach beforehand. We try and work with the building departments when a new facility is going in to identify permits that have been pulled through the counties and city agencies for either modifications of an existing facility or a new facility going in, and try and be ahead of the curve. That doesn't happen all the time, is the reality of the situation. In the case of Creek Crush or GR Trucking here, they do have another facility that is under permit with us.
One on White Rock Road.
The one on White Rock Road. Both of these are recycling facilities. Recycling facilities do create pollution, both particulate as well as the diesel pollution from the engines that typically drive the equipment. The very reason that we do permit them was noticed while we've been permitting the Bradshaw facility, is that there are some engines that would be pulled in there sometimes that aren't capable of being operated because of their toxicity and proximity to receptors. So, we did notice after the Bradshaw facilities was kind of put there for handling a lot of the arena project. We did do a lot of outreach with the arena developers prior to that project going in to try and explain all of the issues regarding that facility, the arena facility, and all of the issues there. And they've been quite good, that facility. The ancillary, subcontractors, the ones pulling out concrete and then doing other things with it, probably got lost a little bit in that process. But we've tried to keep abreast of all of the issues. Whether it's the pulling out of the material, where we have track out that's done by a trucking company, that sort of thing. So we've tried to capture it all, and I have to admit that we've been at this for years, and we've never always gotten everybody.
No, and I get that. Again, I was asking a question. So our point of contact, though, so here did somebody make contact with them, either one of our inspectors or some outreach, or we know you're doing something that isn't permitted, it's not on our book, so you get a notice of violation.
It's a notice. It says that you're already operating without the benefit of a permit that you're required to have.
Okay.
It's SOP. Otherwise, we're constantly chasing around for it, and we end up with a notice of violation all the time anyway.
And I would trust that, though, because you kind of tied this to the arena. Their use permit was to allow them to locate on Bradshaw Road location was forced in effect long before the arena ever got decided, or they moved one spade of dirt over around the corner here. That may have triggered the level of activity because they're receiving that material in either repurposing or whatever, but they've been there for several years. I mean, I know that when this was going through the hearing process, again, because I had concerns at the time, I met with the folks, actually toured the site to take a look at it to see how it would fit there. It's just south of Jackson Highway on the west side. So I guess I do think that, and if we looked at others in the industry, that maybe as we do with our workshopping on rules and rule making and rule amendments and so forth, that might be an approach. Again, there maybe your SOP as an NOV for, a standard operating procedure for a notice of violation is, doing just that on individual situations. But if you have an industry that's growing or there's some permitting issues or air quality issues, that would seem to me would be trigger on our end of it, say, let's call these folks together. Let's, we can send them all NOVs and, work on them one by one, but maybe we have a better outcome assuming they're willing to.
Certainly, we always offer that as something we can get. This was not necessarily recognized as an industry-wide type of problem. We have a number of recycling facilities in this county. They're in various stages of permitting. There were some that were pointed out to us that we just didn't know about, and so they've gotten onto the program now as well in terms of they're obtaining their permits. We've had some that had already started that process when Creek Crush or GR Trucking was noticed. So, I mean, as an industry, they should probably know, because there's many facilities that
there's
are in
responsibility that they bear as well. I'm not acknowledging that. I would just say, though, again, you review a lot of different entitlements at the various jurisdictions that give land use entitlements and permits. This one, I know, had a pretty, it may have been a neg deck, but it certainly had a pretty good volume of documentation behind it. So I would have trusted there, condition, which you folks often recommend, conditions that go into a whole series of conditions would be to, and again, if that was in there, then that was notice that was given to GR Trucking, they get proper permits from the Air Quality Management District. Again, it's something they should know. But I guess I was just hoping that this is a learning experience for us as well, that whether it's with this particular operator and or others in the industry. Again, nothing's perfect, and I get that, but I think it's unfortunate because obviously it creates friction, and the business gets affected. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Natoli. Director Cerna.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to invite Adam back up because I have a few questions. My understanding is I met with Creek Crush, GR Trucking, Adam and his partners a couple weeks ago to talk about this. And he's right, I did suggest that he come and speak on items not on the agenda. Because I got to tell you, it was pretty frustrating to hear what I heard, and I know there's multiple sides to a situation like this. But what I was hoping Adam might elaborate on a little bit further, based on our earlier conversation, was kind of this ambiguity in terms of whether you need mobile versus stationary permits, and then if you're renting equipment, and then if the rental equipment, it's kind of a crapshoot in terms of the types of engine equipment, the tier, tier of the engine is in question, and so trying to work in an environment with kind of those uncertainties, and perhaps not with the amount of outreach that you had hoped. And I take Adam at his word that they're trying to do the right thing. They want to be in compliance. They're not trying to circumvent the law. But I'd like to hear a little more from Adam about that aspect of his situation.
Certainly, and I think the difference is where we were at and why White Rock Road facility had a stationary permit is that is basically 365 days a year operation with crushing plants. This Bradshaw plant, we would mobilize our crushing equipment once, maybe twice a year to process for 2 to 3 week period of time. And often what we would choose to do is, if we were busy, we would either hire a mobile crushing company who has equipment permitted under the portable equipment registration program through the state that allows it to move from site to site. So we would have them come in at a cost to process. And there's about 3 or 4 of those companies in our area. They all operate different models and brands of crushing plants. So with PERP is what we believed, and the way that you read the state regs, it appears that PERP was permitted and correct for use at Bradshaw. Now that we are essentially married to our 3 pieces of crushing equipment, that crushing equipment isn't necessarily the best equipment to use for different types of concrete. Right now we're using it at the Bradshaw facility when I should be renting one Tier 4 piece of equipment.
A cleaner piece.
A cleaner piece of equipment that is a crusher, a screen, a conveyor all in one, rather than have the three units down there. And I should be using one piece of equipment right now that I should have been able to rent. There may be, one facility or one rental equipment house may have 4 units, all the same model number, but their engines, their engine numbers, their emissions, they're different between each model.
Okay.
And I guess one thing I maybe forgot to mention earlier is, with the stricter regs here in Sac County, even though we share the same air basin, there are now facilities popping up all over West Sacramento and El Dorado County that don't have to comply and go through what we have to go through.
So as a regulated party, you're sensing some inconsistency across the region?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Larry?
Yeah. I guess the first thing I would mention is it would have been nice to know about this particular issue before the meeting so I could have prepared staff to respond adequately to the board. But that said, I do know that this has been an issue that we have worked on with the industry. At the highest levels, there was legislation prepared a couple of years ago and about this particular issue. CAPCOA and the Air Resources Board sat down with the industry and worked through a very difficult series of discussions with statewide representation for several years and came up with a document which outlined how these kinds of situations would be permitted. The problem was that equipment that would not be allowed in air districts and would be higher toxics and lower tier than we would permit in particular locations was getting permitted and used very near your residence in situations where they were coming through the PERP registration, which was the Air Resources Board registration for portable equipment. So in particular, this industry, which comes in sporadically and brings equipment in to a certain location and operates for a period of time, was ground zero for that kind of situation. And we believe we came up with a statewide consistent document for how these would be permitted. And staff has been doing that on a regular basis over the last year or so, talking to facilities, Tykert and other facilities, and Tykert and Granite, we have talked to them. When, however, the arena brought up a quick range of sites that now fell under that regulation, and the people who were operating those may not have been privy to that long series of discussions that have been held and that our regular companies like Tykert and Granite that we work with were familiar with and had been through those tough discussions. I will have to look into this, the particulars of timing and such, but I do know that the industry has been well noticed and was well integrated into those discussions. And we actually backed off a lot on what the air districts wanted to do based on the industry input as we went through those discussions.
I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You said the industry's been well noticed. It sounded like the few sentences before it was certain elements of the industry have been well noticed.
Their their industry organization was the people that brought the bill and the people that we were working with.
Is that CalCEMA?
CalCEMA.
Yes. And that has been, a couple of years worth of work.
5 years of work.
Okay. So we have known about this particular kind of a situation for a long time and have come up with a solution. That's not to say that this particular business knew about that, because communication isn't always perfect. It's not to say that that they don't feel like there was a got you kind of a moment. But we have businesses here that are permitted in a certain way in Sacramento County, and in fairness to them, when we find a new business that's operating in a particular way that we wouldn't permit that other business as a level playing field, we have to take care of that. But I will be very happy to meet with the company and them and talk through this. But as I have found many times, there's always a rest of the story. If, in fact, we have not noticed or done something we should have done as far as process, we'll certainly correct that. But I can't say at this particular time that that's the case, because I haven't had a chance to look into the particulars here.
Maybe in the interest of time, what I could recommend is, we've heard a couple questions from directors, and if you could report back between meetings on answers to those questions, and then we can decide if this needs to be agendized for further discussion.
Be happy to do that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the board? All right, the meeting's adjourned.
I thought we were having a closed session.